And hello, welcome to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism. Look, listen to that music.
That's us.
That's what's up, guys. And I am here with my lovely, wonderful, beautiful co-host, Christy Santiago.
That's me. Happy Friday, guys. We have a fun show for you tonight. Actually, with all the craziness we've brought you, there might be some of that. You can probably count on it. But it's we're gonna.
I was gonna say.
You can probably most definitely, absolutely, positively count on it.
Yeah, but we're gonna try to make it as light as possible, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're gonna have one of our comfy conversations. I am in one of my favorite things to wear in the summer in Florida. It's made by Soma, which is a wonderful quality. It's a sundress, but I will sleep in it. Actually, I have and do because it's so comfy. And I don't have socks on. We're ready to just be two humanists having a conversation, although we are going to bring you some news, but for the most part, we'll be talking about it. So we'll do things just a little bit different. And if you guys have questions, definitely tag LEAH Podcast, which is our Lord and Savior, and he will actually make sure that we get those in case, like me, I'm not paying attention to chat hardly ever because I'm looking at Mac's beautiful face. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? Just have to look at it. I can't touch it.
Attention.
I have touched it. I'm very fortunate in this life.
You're one of few in the community who has touched my face.
Right. And I did. I took total advantage of that.
Of my face.
Yes. And I'm not positive if I got consent first.
I came to you, so.
Or after, or during. For the first, third, or ninth time.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. Christy doesn't need consent.
Listen, you would touch
Christy's too pretty for consent. What?
Yeah, you would touch Mac's face too.
You would. It's. I've heard it's smoother than you think.
Than a baby's bottom.
Yeah. I'm usually kind of rough. I don't know. See, that's what Matt always said. Maddie now. Yeah.
Yes,
like his face is so he just would not stop touching my face.
Because of his advertisement and the joy upon his face whilst touching your face that's what got me. I needed at that point on to touch that face.
Yeah.
And I did. Bucket list.
True.
Check.
There we go. I'm glad I could be that for you, Christy.
I'm simple.
All right. We have a wide array of topics for everyone tonight. We're just calling the whole thing Comfy Convo. But we have a lot of things to talk about, and we're going to try to do it in the lightest manner possible. But I don't know, I get passionate sometimes, and sometimes when I'm passionate, I get upset about things. And I'm sorry, guys. The world bothers me, especially the state of our country, because that's the one I got to deal with is our country. So there's that. But anyways, let's start somewhere else. Let's start in a different country tonight. Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
You cool?
Do it.
Good. Yeah. All right. Kim Jong-un, this past weekend, was rumored to be dead, and that was kind of hard to determine because they hadn't seen him. Hasn't seen him. No one had really seen him for about a week, and he missed an annual military. I can't remember if it was a parade or just some kind of honors event. It was probably some kind of parade. And he doesn't miss those. That's not a thing he misses. But he had a heart surgery, and it was rumored to be botched. And then the Japanese government actually sent some doctors over to go check out the situation, see if they could help. And then it was rumored that he was in not a good state. And it was also rumored that not good state was dead. So it turns out over the last couple of days here, he has made an appearance. He's come back out in the sunshine, in the light, and he seems alive and well. So hey, go figure. Don't know if that's good or bad news, but if it did spark a few thoughts and ideas and rumors while he was rumored dead. Yeah,
the deep state took him and re-brainwashed him, and so now he's the good Kim Jong-un. Yeah, and now all of our multinational corporations are going to be allowed to come in and plunder.
Yeah, there's that. Everyone, make sure you grab a drink for tonight. This would be good. Grab a drink, grab a snack. Christy, what are you snacking on?
Pull Peels by Twizzlers.
Ooh, the pull and peels are the best ones.
They are.
I think the other ones just aren't worth eating unless they're like the extra flavored ones. Anyways, so Kim Jong-un, I didn't know, but he had died. We don't know. We wouldn't have known. Is the thing. We wouldn't have known right away because when his father died, which is actually still the leader of North Korea, right? He is still like the president or like the Sultan. I don't know, not Sultan.
He's the god.
I wanted to say something. He's the god, basically. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are a theocratic dictatorship, and Kim Jong-un is the acting like president.
He's the only begotten son.
The only begotten son of the God. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing there. But people were wondering, like, okay, well, what would happen if he died then? Like, okay, yeah, it's gonna take a couple days before we find out, because that's what happened when his father died. Like, it took about 2-3 days before it was actually announced, and then like Kim Jong-un had like consolidated power at that point. And we figured that what his sister might try to do is try to, take a few days, consolidate power, make sure the military is behind her and people know like what's, who's in charge. And then announce, he's dead. Hey, I'm in charge now. And we need to honor my brother kind of thing, or however it's going to go. Or there was going to be some kind of huge revolt. Which is also another reason to keep it secret. And I kind of want to point out that this is the smart way to do things when you are a dictatorship. You do not tell the people. You do not tell anyone. You need to keep that dictatorship going in a dictatorial kind of way. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with dictatorships. I hate authoritarianism, like in any way, shape, or form, like domestic all the way up. But I do see that like dictatorships can work. I mean, like, look at schools, look at businesses, like they work. I think they work kind of poorly, but they do work, and you have to do certain things to allow them to work. And one is like you need to withhold information and have military power behind you and other such things, and also like have government over private companies, like we don't have here. We don't have like we have an oligarchy here in our country, because private businesses, larger, rich private businesses, have more say over policies than our government officials that we elect do. Really interesting. So we still have a type of authoritarianism, but it's like a libertarian authoritarianism, which is it's weird. But when you're a government dictatorship like North Korea is, you do need to kind of use that state-run media to keep things quiet until you make a decision on something, or when you die, someone needs to take over.
Yeah, they need to
it really made me think a lot about it.
control the narrative and have absolute control over every bit of information that's going into every brain in the country.
Yeah, and they do that. And
yes,
I mean, people.
State TV plays over speakers throughout the country. So the workers that are in the fields who do not get paid for their job, that's what they do to be a part of North Korea. That's their job, to be a member of North Korea. Over the speakers plays all this nationalist propaganda, and there are people who are cheerleaders. They show up every day when people start getting tired, cheerleading them on about how wonderful it is to work for the god Kim, and how he was born on a mountain and doesn't poop, and blah 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 blah. And
yeah, no, it's true. And just to really liken it to something closer to home, I already mentioned schools, but it sounds a lot like a school, but the entire country has those intercoms all over the country. So if an announcement is made, you hear it. There are cheerleaders to like boost up school spirit. I mean, national pride. Mm-hmm. It's very Orwellian. It's very interesting. It's also super duper not democracy, which is something that for. So, but yeah, that's an interesting.
But North Korea calls itself the Democratic. That's in their name.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Well, Hitler called himself a socialist, and Kim Jong-un calls himself a Democrat. So a democratic country.
Yeah.
So, Russia, USSR called itself communism, which, I mean, you can call yourself whatever you want. That doesn't make it true.
Yeah. I mean, you can be a communist dictatorship, right? But that's not what communism's supposed to be.
That's an oxymoron.
More or less. I mean, you can do that. You can have a strong government like use that has like a communist economy, but it takes out half of the communist like ideals,
right?
Like right off the bat.
But is for community. That's what that stands for.
Yeah,
community-ist, community, and an authoritarian government who calls itself communist is using the name communist. And if you follow the history of the country, when that country became the country it is right now, what were the politics that were going on? Huge, massive waves of socialism movements, of socialist movements, of communist movements, of anti-war movements. So what's
worker
the best
parties.
way? Worker movements, to, join us. We are the democratic dictatorship of North Korea. Join us. We are the nationalist socialist of Germany. Like, just people need to really be critical in their thinking. And just because something is called something doesn't mean that that's what it is. It means you got duped if you believed it, and that was the whole point. They were trying to. It's not your fault.
Right. And it's one of the issues is that monarchs tend to beget monarchs, and dictatorships tend to beget dictatorships. So if you're trying to overthrow a dictatorship, whoever did the overthrowing feels like they need to stay in power to keep things the right way, and it becomes another dictator. Like it's poison all the way through.
Like kings and queens. That's what they did. So they believed they were chosen by Yahweh. Their family was. Therefore, they're divinely put here. So their children, if they were bastard children had by the king's whores, they still mattered and had a better life than other children, but the girls went to convents, or the king could marry them off to whoever he wanted to cause alliances. But his children that were born in wedlock,
Pure.
they now are also
Kissing cousins, probably.
anointed by the Lord. And also, because God chose this family's blood, this child will be your future king. No matter what their politics are, no matter, I mean, off with their head, Vlad the Impaler, like there's a lot. And a lot of these families thought that to stay pure as God wanted them to, the most pure family they could, they did what you mentioned just now. They like, hello, son, this is my sister's daughter. She will be your wife, because we've got to keep the we've got to keep the power in the family. That way we can't have any usurpers.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
right.
Alabama's been going on for a long time.
West Virginia.
West Virginia.
I call it Abalama, because everything's just a little bit backwards.
Very sorry if you're from Alabama and you're watching this.
I have friends from Abalama, and they think that Abalama is hilarious, and that and they will also, I've heard, can I use that? And I'm like, well, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone should use it.
Can
it should
actually coin it.
Abalama. Welcome to Abalama.
There we go. Now that we've offended one state, let's see if we can get a couple more.
Just the state, not the people.
Just the state itself.
What is it? Roll Tide. Right? Did I do that right?
Good job, Boo.
High five?
High five.
I don't even know sport ball that well.
All right, go Bama.
Sport ball.
I didn't even catch it. I know as much sport ball as you do.
Roll Tide. That is Alabama University, or University of Alabama.
Yeah.
I love learning things.
University of Alabama. And a very good friend of ours who started off as a client of mine. She has massive hair and could never get anyone to spend the time to do it right. And then we just became friends, and now she's part of the family. And she is a graduate of Abalama and agrees Abalama is a hilarious word, and also is a huge Alabama University or University of Alabama supporter. So that's how I knew about Roll Tide. I'm not actually educated in sports, guys.
I think right.
I know basketball players have the nicest arms, and snowboarders are potheads.
Okay.
That's the extent of my sports.
You're probably right. Except snowboarders isn't sports ball.
Oh,
just so you know.
yeah.
I'm not sure if
Hey, listen,
I know
it's part
that.
of the X Games, which is considered a sport because they show it on ESPN.
Well,
So-
yeah, it's just not sport ball, Christy. I'm just
Not
look.
sports
I'm,
ball. Yeah, you're correct. All the sports I like do not include balls. Actually,
Gymnastics.
I like gymnastics,
Does the lesbian?
figure skating. Yeah, I'm like, I weigh out the sports, and I'm like not okay with the
Weigh 'em
balls.
out.
I weigh them out.
Yeah.
This went really low.
I'm just like digging the hole bigger at this point.
Might as well. It's all good.
Climb into it, swim around.
Flip in the water.
So I'm gonna keep us moving a little bit.
That's good. Good idea.
I asked you if you could come up with a little 2-minute thing today. Did you get that or no?
Do you think I could do it in 2 minutes?
I don't know.
You're supposed to support me.
I am.
That was a support laugh, everyone, in case anyone was ever wondering what a support laugh sounded like. It sounds a lot like.
Yes, it sounds like that.
I did. I put together something, fact checked it.
Sweet. Cool, because I got like a 30-second thing of it. And I'm just like, well, if Christy has something that's awesome. If not, I got 30 seconds. Well,
I do. Because I think May Day is so important. I mean, like, I cannot stress enough how important May Day is and why it's so important that we educate, your children, Mac, should grow up knowing what May Day actually is.
Yeah.
What it means, who died, who the martyrs are, why
Yes, that's what I was hoping you'd get.
Yeah, history. You said something about the history. I was like, I got it.
You got it? Sweet. Can I walk you into it real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. All right. So what we're talking about here, for those of you who do not know, because I know we have a couple like newer viewers, so is May 1st is more or less the original Labor Day. It is the International Workers' Day.
Yeah.
And like pretty much every country, like developed country that has like workers' rights, celebrates Labor Day or International Workers' Day today. Not the last day of summer. And the only two who don't is Canada and the USA, of course. You'll say, of course, by the end of what Christy has to tell you. So yeah, the main point here is today is basically Labor Day, and it's really important that we recognize that it's like an International Workers' Day, Labor Day at first.
Sorry.
Because there's so much history there that has been intentionally covered up by our country and those past presidents. Because like they know the big business. It's really sad that we don't actually celebrate it on May 1st. And Christy's going to tell you why, and then I'm going to give you guys some other fun facts about workers' rights and minimum wage and stuff.
Yeah.
Take it away, Christy.
Let's more supportive laughter over here, by the way. I get supportive laughter all the time. Apparently, I didn't know it
all
was
the time.
Would have felt much better about myself all this time had I known it was supportive laughter.
It's always supportive laughter.
That's what she just said. Those exact same words.
You're welcome, Stacy.
Cahoots. All right. May Day. And I named this segment May Day History 101. In most of the world, May 1st is a day for workers to unite. But May Day isn't recognized in the United States of America, even though it originated here, right here in this country. On May 1st, 1886, more than 300,000 workers and over 13,000 businesses across the U.S. walked out and or off of their jobs for the first May Day in history. This movement began, though, in 1884, 2 years before this, 2 years earlier than the first May Day. When the Federation of Organized Trade, labor unions, all of this in the beginning. So when the Federation of Organized Trades and Labor Unions proclaimed at their convention that workers themselves would institute the, quote, 8-hour day on May 1st, 1886. They will be unveiling this idea that they had been campaigning on, that everyone agreed on. They wanted 8 hours. In 1885, the workers, called for protests and strikes to create the 8-hour day movement and get it going. May Day was part of a revolt against, quote, abusive working conditions, end quote. Those working conditions, they had caused deaths of workers. These were friends that these workers worked with, and end up being family members when you spend so much time with them. And they were tired of it. It also, poverty wages. I mean, this is right after slavery is being, called off. There's no, slavery's coming to an end or had just come to an end. And now there's poverty wages with poor working conditions. And if your employer said you have to work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, you had to, or he would replace you or beat you. There were no laws, none. And for children too. That's another story though. May Day gained permanence because of the Haymarket Rally, which everyone should take the notes, take a note. Haymarket, Haymarket. Haymarket Rally. And look that up. Look up as much information as you can on it. I find that it was so long ago that you can still find biased stories on it, but it's more than nothing. Just here's what happened, because it's been fact checked so much.
I'm gonna link down in the chat real quick just so everyone knows. The International Workers' Day Wikipedia page, and it does have stuff on the Haymarket Affair, and you can click on that as well from there. But there you go, down in the chat.
I will also, when I'm done, add quite a few nifty little sources that I think everyone will enjoy and will help educate, and maybe you can spread them on to friends and family, and especially the younger ones who, just have no idea what the people who came before us did so that we could have 8-hour days. Okay. On May 3rd, Chicago police and workers clashed at the McCormick Reaper Works during a strike where lockout steel workers were beaten as they were picketed. They were picketing and protesting, and they were beaten by the police. And 2 unarmed workers were killed. The very next day, on May 4th, a rally was held at Haymarket Square to protest the killings and the beating of the picketing workers by the police. This rally was peaceful. It was attended by families, children. Everyone came out. Everyone was in solidarity with these workers who were just picketing. They were just protesting injustice and got killed. Even the mayor himself was there, which he made sure he was seen, because he wanted to come out and support, even if he wasn't overtly supporting the workers, he was saying he did not support the violence. As the crowd dispersed on this peaceful day, police attacked. A bomb was thrown. No one, still to this day in 2020, knows who threw that bomb. The police fired indiscriminately, though, into the crowd, killing several civilians and wounding 40 other humans. One officer was killed by the bomb, and several more died, but from their own gunfire, because they were just shooting willy-nilly into anything. A corrupt trial followed, like a kangaroo court, if you will, in August, concluding with a biased jury convicting 8 men, though only 3 of them were even present at the Haymarket. And those 3 were in full view. They were on the stage presenting the talks, the speech for the rally during all of this. When that bombing occurred, all 3 of them were in view. So that's all factual. They still were hauled in. 7 men received death sentences. The 8th was sentenced to 15 years. And in the end, 4 of them were hanged. 1 committed suicide, and the remaining 3 were pardoned 6 years later. The trial shocked workers of the world. The whole world was watching through newspapers at the time. There wasn't, media like we have now, but, eyes were on America. Eyes were on these things, these massive women's rights and workers' rights. And if they could get it right there, well, then the whole world could get it right. With this trial shocking the whole world, that shock led to annual protests on May Day every year from then. The unity of workers on May Day was extremely feared by big businesses and by the US government. And you can imagine why. That very unity is shown by one of the founders of May Day, Lucy Parsons. Lucy Parsons, who was of Mexican American, African American, and Native American descent. Parsons, who was born into slavery, never ceased her work for racial, gender, or labor justice. She just never stopped, no matter what. If it had, she could help with labor justice, she was about it. If she could help with gender, rights, she was about it. And she didn't fit into any category, Native, Black, and white. And think about that. How many of you guys learned about her in school or that name? Right. Her partner, Albert Parsons, heard of him? No, right? No, none of us. He was, yeah, we need to. Now we do. And her partner, Albert Parsons, one of those convicted for the Haymarket and hanged. Solidarity across races and issues and religions and creeds. Solidarity that happened because of this frightens the ever-loving shit out of the ruling class and their beloved power structure. And it should, and that's what we need to bring back. In 1894, President Grover Cleveland severed May Day from its roots. A propaganda campaign, think tanks went out, people did what they had to do, just like they restructured the South and put up all those statues of our, Southern leaders who we all know are just Jim Crow assholes. The same sort of thing happened. And because of this campaign, he was able to sever May Day from its roots completely by establishing Labor Day on the first Monday in September. And this was only after pressure to create a holiday for workers following another strike called the Pullman strike, Pullman. Look this up. I didn't want to cover it in this because it's a whole nother strike, but the Pullman strike will just make you, it's like looking into another country like Kiev or not here, somewhere where Russia is fighting a smaller country. It's just insanity that happened here. And how
I can't recall everything that happened in the Pullman strike, but I remember last year around this time we were looking into it and feeling very shocked of what I learned. I can't recall it right now, but I'm like, oh yeah, the Pullman strike. That ringed a big bell.
Yeah, the cops would show up to protect the big business and use weapons against workers.
That had the Pinkerman
because of the Pullman strike. Because of this Pullman strike, labor unions and trade unions, they were not letting Grover get by. He had to give them something. So he gave them Labor Day on September 1st. Labor Day was recognized by unions before May Day. The U.S. tried to further wipe May Day from the public's memory by President Dwight Eisenhower. Now remember, Eisenhower put "In God We Trust" on our money because of the dirty commies. Right. So he also had taxes at 91% as the highest bracket. So you can have presidents and people, I mean, they're humans. He had amazing things and he had, oh my God, you're a racist asshole things. Like he was a nuanced human being, and definitely he was wrong on this one. But Dwight Eisenhower proclaiming that May Day, May 1st, would now be nationally and federally changed to, quote, Law and Order Day. May 1st, 1958, Law and Order Day. May Day / Workers Uniting was so powerful. 70 years after Haymarket, Eisenhower and the ruling class was still so terrified they had legally changed May Day to the Law and Order Day. 70 years later, people. That's because we, the people, are terrifying to them. The reality is this. The U.S. is ranked 35th out of 37 developed nations in poverty and inequality. The US is ranked 35th out of 37 developed nations in poverty and inequality. According to the UN report, 19 plus million people live in deep poverty in the United States of America, including 1/4 of all youth. And I'm not a mathematician, but that's 1 in 4. I'm just saying, 1 in 4. You and Stacy.
You got
See
me.
why I love her, Mac?
You and are both dying.
We're so supportive.
So proud. So proud.
We're so proud of you.
The U.S. has now returned to pre-20th century non-union working conditions. Chris Hedges, one of my favorite people, writes that workers now must, quote, regain the militancy and rebuild the popular organizations that seized power from the capitalists in the late 1800s. And I agree. And then a rundown, which is very, very, very quick. May 1st, May Day is International Workers' Day and is celebrated worldwide. So now you guys know, that's easy. It commemorates the Haymarket Martyrs, 8 anarchists, all workers in Chicago who were sentenced to death. Now we know there's more to that, but these are things that you can, hey, did you know, that there were 8, and then look into it. And then that there were 400,000 workers in the city that went on a strike demanding 8-hour working days because they wanted 8 hours for labor, 8 hours for recreation, and 8 hours for sleep. That is a 24 hours, and that is what they thought was fair. Employers and the state were determined to crush this movement in rebellion as they saw it. A rebellion is never a good thing to anyone who is happy with status quo. And so, with all of our hindsight being 2020 and all, and investigative journalism being what it is, we now know that the state framed some of those organizers for throwing a bomb at the police, while the same police were attacking a demonstration and demonstrators who were not a threat, nor were they armed. 4 of the anarchists were executed, 1 committed suicide, the remaining 3 were later pardoned. Workers around the world began to walk out and strike after hearing of the brutal news coming out of Chicago. Workers began to demonstrate on May 1st everywhere in remembrance of what happened in America, and also for the 8-hour day in 1890. The fight for the 8-hour day continued all over the globe, and today, most countries celebrate a Workers' Day on May 1st, aka May Day. August Spies. It's spelt Spies, S-P-I-E-S, but his name is August Spies, and he was executed. He was hung. One of the martyrs told the judge, and I thought all of them had something to say, and then when they were done saying it, they dropped the bottom out from underneath them, and they hung till their death. But his quote is, "If you think that by hanging us you can stamp out the labor movement, then hang us. Here you will tread upon a spark, but here and there and behind you and in front of you and everywhere flames will blaze up. It is a subterranean fire, you cannot put it out." And as he finished saying out, they killed him. None of that is taught in American public education. And all of that is factually correct. And May Day came from the United States of America. It's ours.
It should be our holiday.
Yes.
We should be number 1 here.
The business owners were terrified of having to treat their laborers right. They were terrified of having regulations, meaning they would have to follow rules because they thought they were the leaders of industry. They were the kings and queens of this. And
when you dehumanize people who are under you, either class-wise, race-wise, or otherwise, it's really easy to feel like something's being taken from you when you have to share.
Right. Yeah, I love that quote. I always say it to the uber privileged, the uber wealthy, the my money makes so much money type of wealthy. To the uber privileged, equality feels like oppression.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know if you mentioned this part, but out of those men that were hanged, because there were 4 in particular that were hanged, right? Yeah. They were later pardoned by another judge, right? After they died, because the judge found that the judge was biased.
Yes.
And the prosecution was very cheaty. I don't remember the words, but yeah, they did some stuff like behind the scenes, and I can't remember the quote. They had said something about like they didn't think they were guilty of the bomb that was let off during the protest, but they knew that they were leaders of the protest and the movement, so they needed to be dealt with.
There's more than that. There's way more than that. You have
there is more than that.
of the people behind the scenes, not the faces, not the politicians, the people who guide them, and the ruling class, the Mercer families and stuff like that of back then, the robber barons. And this is all documented now, and they have came out back then and said, it doesn't matter if these people are guilty. We know we're about to make them martyrs, and maybe that's not a good idea to make them martyrs because, now they'll have a reason. However, we need to tie in that bombing and that chaos and that fear and the unraveling of society with anarchism, because that they were anarchists, and communism and socialism. And so we need to have a war on that. And that's what they took to court.
Right. And then they the defense was not allowed to use like that quote during the hearings to show that like they're not being tried for what like they say they're being tried for. Like we have this evidence of them saying
it was an opinion
saying this.
It was an opinion court to stop an idea. It had nothing to do with
a real trial.
Right. The crimes these humans did. It was the crimes that they thought. The thought crimes of them having different ideas than capitalism.
Right. Because here in America, we all agree with prosecuting thought crimes, right? That's one of the big.
I mean, Eugene Debs comes in because of this. Eugene Debs he ran as a socialist for president and ended up getting so much percentage, in polls, 15%. That doesn't happen.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. And they were like, we need to stop that. So because he gave a speech, Eugene Debs, telling young men, do not sign up for this war. World War I they were ramping up World War I. That it is a rich man's war, that what you'll be doing is going into these poor brown countries and making them grow sugar and killing them if they won't. Please don't sign up to them. Be a conscientious objector. And they took that speech and charged him with espionage because during a time of war, no one can come out and speak against, they had to slap it up, flip it, rub it down, remix it, times
Yeah.
it, divide it, right? But they got him, and
Yeah.
because he was charged with that and put in prison, later let out. It was too late to be president, and they were able to associate him, take him out of it, socialism with treason, and so they stamped that out as well. I mean,
Tricky
it's
bastards.
not that black and white, but yeah.
It's about that black and white, really. Like you summed that up really well. you did.
Really sad.
Yeah, it is.
I just really, really looked into that story because the very first time I found out, wait, America had a guy who ran for president who was a socialist and like had a good chance of really, wait, who, when, what? How do I not know about that? So I needed to know all about it. The same thing that Julian Assange is being charged with right now is what they charged Eugene Debs with.
Espionage. Yeah.
Yes.
Only like less than 10 people have been charged with that in this country. And
right.
Most of the time it doesn't work.
Bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah, allergies.
Allergies.
So I want to piggyback off your story here.
Right.
And switch gears slightly over to minimum wage, because that's something that really changed my economic views, because political views and economic views are not quite the same, for those of you who do not know.
Right.
So here's some fun facts about minimum wage. Just going to give you some bullet points and talk about it a little bit. Also, I'm going to make this screen smaller because I have a couple things to share and I want to make sure I can get to them. So, sorry. All right. First thing, in 1894, New Zealand was the first country to establish a minimum wage. That's extra interesting because that's 1894.
Mm-hmm.
Christy's story of International Labor Day, or the Haymarket Affair, that happened in 1896, right? So 2 years.
1886.
86. Okay, my bad. Yeah, I thought it was 4.
Yeah, but 2 years before that is when they really started to plan for 1886.
Okay, cool. So
they didn't
8
have
years.
TV guys. They plan things, you know.
Yeah, that's weird. So 8 years after that affair, New Zealand gets the first minimum wage. So what happened in America was very, very prominent at the time, and I think potentially had a strong influence on a minimum wage just 8 years later over in New Zealand. But for us, we didn't get a minimum wage until 1938, almost 150 years after the fact. Almost had nothing to do with it. Almost, except FDR was kind of wonderful and kind of knew his history and had decent ideas. So FDR comes in and Congress passes the Fair Labor Standards Act. And that set the minimum wage to 25 cents an hour. That would work for us now, and that's okay because we're not still there. But let me see here. I think it's this one. No, it is not. Give me a second. Oh no, I almost left the meeting. That would have been awful. Bye, Christy. Have fun doing the rest of the show by yourself. Okay, so I have a little graph here. You guys can't see it super well, but I'm gonna try to show you. So since 1938, we have raised the minimum wage 22 times to $7.25 an hour. and it even dropped down here in the 70s, which was really interesting. But it just slowly rises over the years. So there's that. So we have this. Now, it's good that it's went up. Obviously, that's a good thing. And 29 states have higher minimum wages than this federal minimum wage that I'm sharing with you. And it seems that these states are doing fine. Like they haven't like had some kind of economic collapse because of the minimum wage is like too high. There is homelessness, and there is an unemployment rate in every state. Doesn't matter what their minimum wage is much. I'm sure there can be some correlation here and there if we look for it, but I have not. From what I've seen, from what I have seen though, both states have problems, and it's just an underlying factor, if any. Something I thought was interesting though is that Australia, France, and the UK tend to raise their minimum wage much more often than we do. France, for instance, raises it every year based on inflation. And it's just a common thing. So businesses don't freak out about it, right? When they have productivity and growth, they know that they're going to have to raise the minimum wage. So this is all building up to a thing. If the minimum wage had kept up with inflation here in the US, the minimum wage, and this varies, but it would be up to $10.75 an hour, potentially, or I've even heard about $12 an hour. If you adjust that with the workers' productivity, it would be $18.67, and that is just from, I believe, 1968. If you adjust it from the workers' productivity at the time of 1968, how much they produce and how much wealth that they create by their production, the minimum wage should be at $18.67.
And that's different in every state, because in New York, that tied to inflation, tied to all the things that it should be tied to, it would be 27 something. And in San Francisco, it would be like 27 something. So in LA, it would be 22 something. It just, it depends on, you know,
because each of our states is like a little country, right?
Yes.
We have our own economics.
They're sovereign states. Yes, they are.
Yes. But we should take the lowest of those and make that the national average, right? And actually adjust it for productivity and for inflation and the cost of living, right? Because all those are important. We don't want anyone, like, even if it costs the federal government or like the nations as a whole some money to bring up the minimum wage in another state, I think that would be good, because we don't want anyone in our beloved US of A making poverty wages. We just don't want that, because we care about each other collectively. No, right. If you work a 40-hour week, which is what Christy was talking about here, 8-hour days, 5 days a week, like we established this back in the 1800s.
Right.
If we want to honor that, which we should want to, because just think, like, when you work 40 hours a week, you expect to make enough to make a living, at least for yourself, maybe for a family. Like in the 70s, you could do that with a family. That's why we have this stereotype of the woman stays home, takes care of the kids. Man goes to work, provides for his family, and he can do that, and the woman can stay home because he's paid enough and has a and he's productive at his job, and what the hell ever. But we can't do that anymore. Like, both parents have to work. Sometimes both parents have to work 1.5 to 2 jobs, and then no one raises the kids. And then you hear mostly conservatives talk about family values and how someone has to be home with the kids, or someone has to watch the kids and raise them, but no one's home to raise the kids when you won't raise the minimum wage, or we won't care about workers really at all for multiple reasons. And you can't stay home and raise your kids and make sure they don't grow up as hooligans if you just literally can't be home, or you'll lose your home. That doesn't fucking make sense, right? We need to have labor standards. We need to have a 40-hour work week that provides for a family of at least 4, right? That way we can go home, spend time with our families, because this creates havoc for just mom and dad relationships, or just couple relationships, right? If you can't spend time with each other, and if you're just too stressed going to work 60 hours a week, or 45 or 50, like, work causes stress, but we do it because we want to make a living. I'm in favor of UBI, Universal Basic Income. And I think a UBI should be a thing in this country, especially if we don't have a good minimum wage. Because my thoughts are, if you can work to the best of your ability, a 40-hour work week, you should be able to pay your bills, go out to eat at least twice a month, and go see a couple of movies. Like, that's 3 things. That's not fucking luxurious. That's not owning a fucking jet. That's not buying an extra classic car just cause. That's not just like, you can't buy lobster every night off that. No, you kind of have to live frugally. Yeah. If you can afford to go out to eat 2 times a month.
That's spending time with your family.
Is important.
It's important, yes. So whether it's a movie or dinner and a movie twice a month, something like that. I mean,
or save that up and go on a family vacation 3 times a year. 3 times a year is not a lot of fucking vacation.
No, but I can tell you that when my girls were in high school and middle school, there were no there were no vacations. I worked doing hair and paid. There were no vacations. Don't get me wrong, they were able to go to prom and do those things. They were involved with something, whatever it might have been. Like, Jordan was in costume design, she needed a sewing machine. I don't know about you guys. Go ahead and look up a brand new sewing machine. You're looking at like $500 and up, so I mean, I had to plan all of that, but there were no vacations. And if I took time off, that was time that I didn't have an income. Like, I had to give up income for time with my family. And I think that if there is a way that doesn't have to be mandatory for families, then I feel like it would be immoral to not make that happen.
You're right. And
family matters, right? Don't we want to be the party of the family? Family first.
Either party would be nice. Yeah. And here's a little graph I forgot to show when I was talking about the minimum wage. You can see the minimum wage being actually pretty high, adjusted for inflation. Back in the 70s, around the time of Ike, it was super high.
Look where Reagan came in, 1980. Ooh, look at
Reaganomics.
And other George and the other George.
Yeah, it drops every time. But what's interesting is Christy mentioned Dwight D. Eisenhower. He had a 91% tax rate. Now, for those of you who don't already know, that is a good thing.
Yes,
It's a good thing because it's a progressive tax rate. That means someone like Christy and I, who make under $50,000 a year, we'll say.
Yeah, we wouldn't be paying $1 into that.
Or you would only be paying about, I don't know, 10 to 20%, which is about what.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be paying any part of the 90%. Like,
no, we wouldn't be paying any
part of that had nothing to do with us.
No.
Probably we don't know anybody that would be a part of their taxes.
No. No, we don't. There's a good chance.
I mean, maybe I do, and they're just like incognito. But I doubt if we were to implement 91% being the top sliding tax progressive tax scale, you know, that would be like $500 million and $1 up to $600 million. You know, like in that particular group, 91% goes back into taxes, and then everything above that, everything below that, it's a lower tax, lower tax, lower tax. And even the billionaire who pays that 91%, they only pay that in that 501 million, and you know, that's the 90%. The 100 million below that would be 80, right, and then 70, and then 60, and then right. So on that billionaire, for their first 35,000 that they make, they pay the same amount of taxes that like Mac would pay out of if he made 35,000. That would be what the billionaire pays out of that amount. And I think that that's the most fair way. I have had so many conversations with libertarians who swear by a flat tax, and that the government needs to never do bailouts, and that they all have different tunes right now with this pandemic going on. It's almost night and day talking to these people, because right now it's everyone they know needs help, and all the taxes that have been paid in should go back to help the people. And now they understand what they're about. And I'm just like,
yeah. Yes. This stuff really isn't super complicated, like most of the stuff that we talk about on the show.
No, but it's made and created to be and sound and feel like it is going to be complicated. So many people who live busy lives think, oh, but I don't want to get into that. It's so divisive. I don't want to lose friends. There's such a smog of negativity around it that most people don't touch it. And if we don't push that smog and bullshit and lies and fake news away from it so we can actually look at it, we're going to have the same problems. We're going to keep doing the same thing we're always doing. We're too afraid to talk about religion and politics, and we're going to keep getting the shit that we've always got because we didn't do anything different.
Right. So. And then we'll forget things like 1886 and the original Labor Day. It won't mean shit to us, and we won't know that we've been fighting for these rights for literally over 200 fucking years. And you don't even hear about it. It's like, it just sounds like these are just stupid new ideas. But no, these are ideas that have made sense to so many people over centuries.
Right.
But to the, what's your quote, Christy? To the overly rich or...
Oh, yeah, like beyond uberly wealthy.
Uberly wealthy.
Yeah.
Equality feels like oppression.
It does. It does. And it's more than that.
It's a killer.
You know, the first time my whole life, America is the best. American exceptionalism. One of the main reasons in my household growing up, being my mom being very involved in the church, was because we have freedom of religion. And look at what's happening over here. They're always about, you know, in this country, the Christians are getting persecuted. And in this country, you know, the Jews are getting persecuted. And here, any religion and blah, blah, blah. And religions are free to practice however they want. And then in my 30s, I found out that that's a fucking lie. because Native Americans, the indigenous populations that lived here before us, weren't allowed to do their dances and their prayers until after I was born. I was born in 1976. Those were illegal. Their dances, their morning dances, they were illegal.
Their
religion. Yes, their spirituality. If they were caught doing it, they'd get arrested. They'd go to jail. It's illegal.
In the land of religious freedom.
In the land of religious freedom. Yes.
The people who were here before us.
Sun dances.
It's one of the saddest stories.
Sun dances. Sun dance. The purpose
they weren't allowed
of
to speak their original language.
Is thank you. That's the purpose of a sun dance. To like start the day, be grateful, and say thank you. That they weren't allowed to do because it was being native. We had to take that out of them.
Yeah.
You know what? I heard something recently that really just I can't stop thinking about it. And I heard it growing up. I heard it from my grandparents. I heard it from people that raised me, aunts, uncles. When I would ask questions about imperialism, well, if they were here first, why, when we were learning about the Trail of Tears, of course it was a sugar-coated Trail of Tears version in school. But I had questions about it, and it was really sad, even the sugar-coated. And the thing that I heard this week, and it wasn't somebody saying it unironically, they were saying, that as if they'd heard it how I did growing up. But they had this land for thousands and thousands of years, and they didn't do shit with it. So, like, seriously, I mean, they had been here for how long? They didn't have buildings. They didn't have aquifers. They didn't have dams. Like, they needed us. They're better off with us here. And I heard that as a kid. And that does make sense when you don't know anything else. Because that statement has facts in it. They were here for thousands of years. That's fact. They didn't build aquifers and mansions and castles. That part's a fact. But all of it is the most racist, dumb shit when you look into it as an adult. And I wonder, that's been having me wonder now all week, how many people my age and older for sure, but my age and younger think that still. Like that whole conquering mentality that as the Bible says, we're put here to, take dominion of the earth, to have dominion over all things living and growing, that it's all here for us to do whatever we want with. And do they still think? I mean, maybe I'm answering my own question when we live in a time when just within the last 24 months, a missionary tried to go to an island full of natives and got shot full of arrows.
The Sentinel Islands.
Right. So I guess I just went through all of that and answered my own question. Yes, students still do. Listen, people, public announcement. They're different than you. You're not better than them because they don't have a diesel engine and an iPad doesn't make them less than you. You're an asshole if you think that. And I know that's not humanist of me, but it still does not make you an asshole because I'm a humanist. So don't be an asshole. I'm an asshole about a lot of things, but hurting other people or supremacy of any type is just disgusting. And I think that supremacy or any type of that, when you Zionism is a type of supremacy. Any type of supremacy, whether it's white supremacy, whether any of it is gross, and we're above it, and people are different than you. I feel very strongly about that.
Yeah, no, and yeah, man, I didn't know we were gonna get into that today. I would have brought more information because
Well,
what we did to the Native Americans is like just that's some of the sickest I've heard in history. Really,
this
just like
story,
even
Mayday has a lot of native stories that go with that too.
yeah, I believe it. I believe it, and yeah, if anyone wants information on that, I have I have some videos. Christy has some information. Ask us for it. If you want to be sad for a while, but understand some history you didn't know, even more recent history,
Yes.
we got that for you. Because they didn't have buildings and cities like we do now, but they had marketplaces
And we can't
all
even
over
say
the
they.
United States,
We
and
can't
they
even
had a
say they
population.
like that, like a blanket statement, because there were so many different tribes. Some had huts, some had brick houses. They'd make brick like out of sand and mud and what they made brick. And then the Incas, they lived in amazing palaces on the side of mountains. So like just different, not less than.
No, not at all. And they had a population that rivaled ours, maybe more.
Yes,
So,
and gender.
and now they don't.
In gender, many tribes were known to let the humans in their tribe decide who they are, what their part in the tribe will be. If they were born a male, they really just love wanting to do all of the things that were done at home. They wanted to hunt and gather. They wanted to raise the kids. They wanted to sew clothing, and they wanted to dress and be a girl. Well, then that's the girl of their tribe. Things were just more accepted, and not in all tribes. This is not a blanket statement. There were tribes that had slaves. There were tribes that were brutal. They're all different types, but there just were no Anglo-Saxon civilizations at that time that if a man decided that his whole life had been wrong and he figured out why everything felt wrong and he hated his body and it was because he was a woman and biology got it wrong, that would have never been accepted. He would have been hung and laughed at. So it's just people are different. The grass isn't greener on the other side. It's different. And many native cultures had things different than us. They were much more egalitarian in some ways, much more empathetic in some ways, and not as tech savvy in many ways. But I don't know. I do know. Humans missed out on melding those two. Like, here's all the knowledge we know. Here's all the knowledge we know. What else can we do together? You know, and
yeah, we fucked up then.
they always want to play like whose dick's bigger, and I'm so sick of it. Mine. The answer will be mine every time, okay? Let's just move on.
Christy has the biggest dick.
I do. And I have a drawer. You can pick a color.
I'm supporting you.
We do not king shame at LEAH, okay?
Nope. We do. Cheers.
Cheers to that. Yeah. We kink support.
Yes. All right, so I'm gonna move on from labor stuff, if that's all right with you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not gonna make it any more comfy with the next topics that I have. Oh God, I always have to look at what's trending on Friday nights before I go live, and I always regret it. Make sure you're smoking when I say this one, Christy. Hashtag I believe Joe is tweeting. Has over 46,500 tweets. And it makes me really, really, really angry. Because one, I don't believe Joe Biden. I do believe Tara Reid. And I believe Tara Reid on just the pure fact of seeing how Joe Biden is around women on normal occasion. Just sniffs their hair, kisses them on the face. It doesn't matter how old or young they are. If he finds them attractive, he's just not decent. So, for those of you who don't know, Tara Reid was sexually assaulted in 1993. He pushed her up against a wall. He penetrated her with his fingers, and then he also tried to kiss her. And when she was like trying to be, when she was trying to kind of get him off of her, he stopped and he's like, "Hey man, I thought you liked me." And he saw that she wasn't happy with it, so he stepped back and said, "You are nothing. You are none to me." And then I think she cried at that point, and then she said that no, he said at that point, "You're fine. You're fine." Like he like grabbed her shoulders.
Yeah,
"You're fine.
yeah.
We're like we're done here," kind of thing. And then she soon after realized that her career in politics was over.
Yes.
Yes. And none of that surprises me.
Just, allegedly, we want to say allegedly, because for legal reasons, I wasn't there. However,
we were not there. Allegedly.
However, I did, as Mac did, Christine Blasey Ford. I wanted to know at least what is demonstrable, what evidence is there for, and what is there against. And I want to see both, and I want them both from multiple sources so that I can have a well-rounded, grounded way of making up my own mind. Now, I didn't know Christine Blasey Ford before this. Had no idea who she was. I do not like at all the douchebag that is now in the Supreme Court. So there is that bias. And I had to put that bias aside.
I like beer.
Because I like beer. I did have to put that aside because what if this is a play? However, when I got done looking at everything I could find on both for and against, and then listened to everything that I could listen to, and looked at the dates of the things, she was compelling. She just was, and he wasn't. And I believed Christine. Now this time, I did the same thing. And there is so much more. Like,
there's more.
Way more. If Christine Blasey Ford had all of this information, Kavanaugh would
be nailed to the wall.
He would not be in the Supreme Court. He would not be a justice right now. It is it is damning. And
they say the source, Christy, this source is not reliable. This is the same. Is it the Atlantic or the Intercept?
The source who brought this story is the same exact source who brought the Kavanaugh story.
Yes. Yes. I can't remember which paper he works for, but not only is it the same paper, it is the same reporter, Ryan Grimm, who broke the story for Christine Blasey Ford,
who is a good reporter.
Yes.
Right. He is an in-depth, he is an investigative journalist. This is what he does. He wasn't coming at it from any angle. It was, holy shit, this needs to be heard. Because as a journalist, your job is to find out the truth and ask the hard questions and challenge authority. That's it.
Yeah, that is your job. And he did that. And he's all of a sudden not credible because he's not fighting someone on the Republican side. He's fighting someone on the Democratic side. And the Me Too movement right now is more or less dead because
many
Alyssa
of
Milano,
yeah, they all deleted
Nancy
their stuff.
Pelosi, yeah, Kamala Harris,
just gone.
Kristen Gillibrand, who I liked up until this moment. She was one of my favorite people on the stage who was actually kind of Bernie-like.
Yeah.
She
still is on many.
She could be decent,
but not on this one.
No, not on this one. Before I forget.
Listen, the neighbor who is contemporaneous evidence,
Linda.
like Jesus doesn't even have contemporaneous evidence, guys. Like, come on.
True, he does not.
She does. And I understand her cognitive dissonance. I felt it this week researching all of the renewable energy. I've felt cognitive dissonance many times in my life because I've been wrong a shit ton of times in my life. So I understand that cognitive dissonance when you hate Trump so much that there's no fucking way you're going to help him become president. I get it. And so then I get that, well, he's not as bad as Trump. You're right. He's not. That bar is so low, though, you have to acknowledge that. But this neighbor of hers, I really love that she was so honest enough to say she's having trouble with it because she is a Biden supporter. She will be voting for Biden in the election because she has to vote for Biden because of how bad Trump is. However, she 100% believes her friend because they came out to each other way before this. And she said, you just know, they were, two friends bonding, telling each other, well, I experienced something. Well, then I, experienced something. And it's good to talk about those things. And so it just so happened to be that that's what they talked about on Tara's side. Now, when all this came out, she let Tara know, listen, I'm still going to be voting for him. However, I will come out and be a witness for you. I was there. Like, I don't care who you're going to vote for. The truth is the truth. So I like that.
She was told 95 or 96. So just a couple years after it happened, she was told.
Yeah, just a few years after it happened. Nobody knew any of this was going to go down. However, to say things like, oh, God, I really hope that didn't happen, or I'm going to vote for him anyway, to not even look into it, to me, I feel like is irresponsible as a voter, as a, informed electorate. And then to be honest, I'm going to vote for him anyway. Trump raped this many, he only finger raped somebody. Be honest, I'd rather have the person that only finger raped than fully raped. But to say he didn't do it and I'm going to vote for him anyway, but then have not looked into all, the evidence is in a court of law he would be guilty. So I don't know. I get the cognitive dissonance. I do. It sucks.
Yeah. And just this last couple of days, the mainstream media has started to really pick this up because of the call that they uncovered. A listener had uncovered from the Larry King Live show where Tara Reid's mother called in to ask advice on what her daughter could do, who works for a prominent senator who has had, she more or less started out some issues with his office, and she didn't get anywhere, basically. Besides go to the press. Like, what can she do besides just go to the press? Because she didn't want to, because she respected the senator. She looked up to the senator. She
Yeah.
admitted.
And
Which
she
was
wanted
forceful.
Obama to win.
Yeah, and she wanted Obama to win.
Mhm.
So she has supported Joe Biden because she's a lifelong Democrat. She supported Obama. But I mean, you also don't want to see the person who sexually assaulted you, allegedly,
Right.
to become president.
No.
And she didn't get anywhere in the 90s because he was a senator.
Right.
She was afraid to say something then.
And Me Too hadn't happened yet.
No.
It would have been her fault, and she would have not had a job anywhere.
And she didn't anyways.
And you've seen pictures of her back then. You know, she was pretty. She would have been told she was using her looks to get around, and it didn't work out because he's a married man and she's a floozy. I mean, come on, we've seen the story a million times. And then I really get heartbroken when I hear the, it doesn't make any sense why she would wait this long. It really doesn't make sense. And then so because I've looked into both for and pro so much,
Yep.
I saw the question. It doesn't make sense why she waited this long, and unless it was a political play and it's just for politics. But then, so looking into it, actually, well, Obama was the choice she made out of who was running for president, and her daughter was in school. She wasn't trying to not let Obama win. She definitely wanted Obama to win. And that was during the first 2008. And then her daughter was in high school and she wanted him to win, and that wouldn't have been a good time. And she just didn't think that Biden was going to keep being in the spotlight. Well, now he might be president. She's like, okay, I feel like my daughter's not at home. I don't gain anything by this except for my duty as a citizen to let all the other citizens know that I know something about this particular candidate that might make you have different feelings about him. And I think that it is anyone's responsibility. But also, they're brave for doing it. It is her responsibility, and she's super brave for doing it. But she doesn't get treated like she's brave for doing it. She gets treated like she's got a disease, like she's causing problems. Yeah, that she's lying, that she's a hack.
And she knew this was going to happen.
Well, she's been called a Russian asset.
Yeah, because she wrote some nice things about Russia.
Right.
So she could be trusted.
Had a pen pal in Russia and had been getting ready to travel. And the people that she knew and talked to all the time were just the sweetest people. And, if your connection to Russia is this big and these families in it are wonderful, you don't see the homophobia, because that's not happening in their family. You don't see the draconian oligarchs taking money from the starving people and the poverty, because that's just not what you see. And she admits now that it was a very small window into Russia, and what she saw, she did love. And she said, and I will always have a romantic view of that because of that part of my life. But she's not a Russian asset. I have a romantic view of Cuba. If I ever go there, I will probably never come back. That doesn't mean that I'm a Cuban revolutionary treason artist. Come on.
Right?
Is that a thing? Could I be one?
Sure. We support you.
Wait. Do I get a cape? Do I get a cape?
I mean, they probably have cake in Cuba, right?
Cape.
Oh, cape.
Right.
Cape.
If I don't get a cape, I don't want the job.
If you get the job, I'll make you a cape.
Yay.
So other things connected to the story real quick, and I don't want to take long on it because we are getting close to our normal quit time. Joe Biden finally went on and actually denied the claims himself this morning, finally, and said that he unequivocally denies the claims. They never happened. It never happened. And he was hardly pushed on it at all.
He said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
No, he said, I forgot I had sexual relations with that woman. No, so he said that.
So presidential.
Before then, Nancy Pelosi, Alyssa Milano, Kamala Harris, Kristen Gillibrand, Stacey Abrams all have come out and defended him and said that Joe had unequivocally denied these claims, but he hadn't done that publicly. They keep quoting him, but no one actually had the quote. That's strange. Also, they said that the New York Times had thoroughly investigated this story and had found that there's nothing that they found that it just wasn't, what was the word?
Legal?
It wasn't consistent, or it wasn't
right.
There was nothing there besides some unwanted hugging, touching, and kissing, which they had redacted, and they didn't show that they edited it.
Uncomfortable. That part was redacted too.
And it was redacted because the Biden campaign actually contacted the New York Times and said that they are not okay with this being in here. And who the fuck cares if right. I'm sorry, right. I know who cares. They shouldn't care. Right. Like, it shouldn't matter that the presidential campaigns doesn't like something that a newspaper is printing about them. Fuck over it.
Shouldn't
Fuck
matter.
over it. It's public knowledge. Like, they should know that. But they had that redacted because it didn't paint him in a good enough light. Mm-hmm. Can't trust the New York Times, I guess. Right. So that was one bundle of joy there. The other thing I found out a little while before we came on tonight is that a second woman has come out she has allegations against Joe Biden, and they're not sexual assault, but it's sexual harassment. Her name is Eva Murray, and she is 26, but 12 years ago, so if you can do the math, yes, when she was 14, she met him at an event, and he leaned in close to her and asked, "How old are you?" And she responded with, "She is 14." And he said, "14? Well, you are well endowed for 14." And he gave her a good old look down and up and down.
Well endowed.
Well endowed. Mm. So he got the age and then still acted inappropriate, which isn't as bad as before. But like, dudes, do we want any of that shit? Like, he's not even completely nominated yet. We don't have to have this man run against Trump.
That would be horrible if that was a woman. That was a child.
That was a child.
A child.
Yeah. So, and she told two family members at the time and 4 of her friends over the next 2 or 3 years time, and they have all they've been collaborated with, and it seems that their stories are all in sync. Yeah. So that just came out today. So that's a fun one.
Oh, no for Joe.
Yeah.
Anyways,
and
so what
Trump is going to call him out on every single one of those, and Biden is going to be like, "Nuh-uh, no, I didn't. I know you are, but what am I?" But Trump doesn't care. He doesn't feel shame because he's a sociopath. So
yes.
Biden is going to get very upset, and he's going to be like, you, like that. Like, he's going to malfunction. He's going to lose his noodle.
He is. And I don't want to, because I said, and it was funny. I read it earlier that I forgot I had sexual relations with this woman because he probably doesn't know where he is half the time. That's why his wife's speaking for him in a lot of their ads right now. Before I get too far on that, I wanted to mention that I saw someone on CBSN report and recap this whole thing today. And after I was done, I had to comment down below because it said breaking news. I said, breaking news, question marks. Katie Halper broke this story over a month ago. It's been about 36, 7, 8 days, almost 40 days since she broke this story. And by the way, you left out her neighbor, friend, brother, and sister, who all confirmed the story.
Yep.
And you didn't mention the Larry King call until at the end of the segment, which most people know that, especially if you're in media, that people don't watch all of the story most of the time, or they especially don't read it, but you put the stuff you don't want them to see towards the bottom. Anyways, so said that, and then I just pointed out that this is poor reporting. I'm a grocery store clerk, and I can do better. But point being that the media is really not backing up the woman in the story like they did during Christine Blasey Ford. And the thing that pisses me off the most, if you've ever heard me talk about policy, is consistency. I just want fucking consistency. Again, if Joe Biden would come out and say, yeah, I did that, and I'm sorry, I would have a lot more respect for him if he just admitted to it. Because I think he did. No, I know allegedly, but also I think he did. Just because, like, I see how creepy he is. I'm like, that's not a stretch. No. Like, if that was a lie, that was a thinly stretched lie. And it's the only other thing that I would believe, and I'm not picking on him, is if he forgot. And that's sad. And then
listen here, Fat.
I still wouldn't vote for. Yeah, listen here, Fat. And he doesn't know what year he's in. He doesn't know that he's running for president. Sometimes he thinks he's running for the Senate.
Let him run for the Senate, guys. Let him
run for the Senate. Yes, please.
Let him run for the Senate.
Even then he shouldn't, because we shouldn't be irresponsible and immoral enough to elect someone who's not in a stable mental state. It would not be fair to him if we elected him president. I think it is a moral thing to do for his health. I think that's awful. The Democratic Party should be fucking like ashamed of itself for pushing this not stable man to be president. It's sick. And also, I don't like him.
Right.
But I could be meaner to him if he didn't have such a mental problem. And
that doesn't mean that like we're not, that we want Trump. I am not voting for. I would never. I would cut off a toe before I would vote for Trump. And Stacey, why would you say that? She's missing a lot of her big toe because she was a professional surfer, and
see the shark.
Yeah, pretty cool though.
You should see the shark.
Gotcha.
Anyways, well, story for a different time. No, yeah. I will not vote for Trump. It's not about that. Biden, earn my vote. Earn it. Tell me that. I mean, I care about certain things that are like non-negotiable, like Medicare for all, or whatever you want to call it, that's healthcare for everyone. It could be Biden super duper or Biden's healthcare for with no malarkey. I like whatever you want to call it. It has to be healthcare for all. Like that is a must. And
Yeah.
he's not. He's like
Not even in the ballpark.
spitting on it. So
Yeah.
like, if you don't care about me, why should I care about you? Like you're not giving a damn about me. And if I go ahead and in, you know, beginning of summer, let the Democratic Party and Biden people know that I'm blue no matter who, they do not have to give any concessions to the left. They don't have to, you know, say maybe we should really work on healthcare or maybe we should really work on, you know, debt forgiveness. We should really try to get all profit out of prisons. They won't care to do these things or have fire underneath their ass because they are entitled to our vote. They're entitled to the black vote. They're entitled to the Spanish vote. So no, say earn it. And even if on the day of you go to the ballot and you're like, oh, I just can't let Trump, and you vote for Biden, that's still okay. We're not saying that like you can't be our friends anymore. I'm actually fascinated and want to know why. And we could talk about those things. Those things matter because that's how we learn how we can do better next time. And like, if you have information on somebody that I like and that I'm out there saying, hey, I really like this person, and you're like, ooh, but you should probably know this about them. Give it to me. Send it to me. If I read something and I'm like, oh God, that looks like it's gonna suck because it's against something or something I believe in or stand for, I have to watch it. I have to watch it.
We try our best to be principled. So if you send us something that shows that someone's against our principles,
well, I don't want to be wrong. So if I watch it and I'm like, motherfucker, I'm fucking wrong, then I get to be right again.
True that.
And that's what's really important, okay?
That Christy's right. Because when Christy's right, I'm usually right.
It has to actually be right, though. I can't just be like, I'm right. I have to like, I'm right, and this is how I know that I'm right.
Right.
Yeah.
So a few more things that I wanted to piggyback off of from this, which Christy's already kind of like led the charge on, is earn our vote.
Dun, dun, dun.
So New York effectively canceled the primary in their state, the election, because they took Bernie off the ballot.
Yeah.
Which means he can't gain any more delegates, and also that just hands it to Joe Biden, and that's an awful thing. And if Bernie can't get the delegates, then he can't get to the 25% threshold where he gets to sit on the committee that makes the rules for the next primaries coming around, which is important. But I've also heard that he's talked to the Biden campaign, and they've made a deal to where they go in this somehow like collectively, and he will get that 25% threshold, like regardless. Like they will treat it as if he got it, so he gets a seat at the table anyways.
He needs a prenup going into that. Pictures or it didn't happen, Bernie. Receipts, everything.
Right. So if that's a thing, that's better. They still shouldn't have taken him off the ballot, though. So the other thing that's going on with this,
that's just rigged. That's how they rigged the system against the people.
It is. So what the other thing that's happening is Andrew Yang. Did you hear about Andrew Yang? Well, let me tell you.
Today I didn't.
He is suing.
Oh, yeah.
New York for, or not the state of New York, but with the DNC there or something, the Democratic Party in New York, for taking Bernie off the ballot, and for rigging it, basically, which is awesome. Go Andrew Yang. Thank you. He has disappointed me multiple times since he left the race, taking a job at CNN and also endorsing Joe Biden. But I still like a lot of his ideas, and I think he can still do a lot of good stuff. But still, democracy dollars, yes. Anyways, that's something that's awesome going on. But another thing, let's take a right back this way. I saw a little clip today with Claire McCaskill. Did you see this one? Okay, well, let me tell you. I will sum it up in a summed up piece of her quote. She was asked about Justin Amash. He is running in the Libertarian Party. And they didn't mention that, what's his name? Howie Hawkins is running in the Green Party. But also I hear, Nacho told me and I looked it up, Jesse Ventura may be running for the Green Party. He's thinking about it. That'd be awesome.
I watched his live show. I try to catch at least once or twice a month. Mm-hmm. And the last one that this past week, he's like, people are asking me if I'm going to run. I'm like, no, not for the Democratic Party anyway. And if I was, then I guess you'd know, but I'm not right now. But he brought it up out of nowhere. So I was like, bitch.
That would be cool. And as cool as that would be, was just Justin Amash, who is not a Democrat. He's a Libertarian. He used to be a Republican congressman, I believe. And Claire McCaskill, was she a senator or a congresswoman? I forget. Do you remember?
Senator McCaskill, right?
Senator?
Was it Senator McCaskill? Is that how it's called? Okay.
Yeah. So she was on, I believe, MSNBC, and she was freaking out because Justin Amash is going to take some of the anti-Trump vote. So she said that this election is too important to have a Jill Stein or a Ralph Nader or any insurgent candidate taking any of the anti-Trump votes. So any third-party candidate.
Entitled to those votes.
Exactly.
The
Democratic Party is entitled.
Is taking things away from them. Having your own mind is raping them of their vote.
Let me look this up real quick, because I'm curious on what democracy means. A system of government by the whole population or the eligible members of a state, typically through elective representatives. Control of an organization or group by the majority of its members. I'm having a hard time finding where you have to choose between two parties, Christy. Where's that part in democracy? Especially from the Democratic Party.
What democracy looks like?
No, it's not. So it's strange that the Democratic Party isn't the one trying to prop up a third party, just on its face. But two, it's just so annoying, and it made me maybe the angriest I'd been all day, and I heard a lot of things that made me angry on the news today.
Right. But a lot of Bernie supporters are very pissed off as well in New York because they were going to vote for him anyway.
They were going to.
Hoping that it would show such a big number that they were like, listen, we have to run people that are more like this because that's the only way we're going to win. Because that's what data does. Data comes in and science has to change its opinion. And when data shows most of the population in this area wants someone who has more progressive policies, the only way we're going to be able to run a race and win is if we run more progressive policies. So you might not win now, but it tells, like, data speaks. That's why so much data is the new oil. If you are curious about that, type in data is the new oil and read and fall down that rabbit hole. And then don't thank me afterwards, but don't be mad at me either, because it'll really fuck you up. Because there's a lot in there, and data is the new oil, and it's terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put that in my Google right now. So another part of the, oh shoot, I almost forgot about that. I was really glad I pulled up Google. Thanks, Christy.
You're welcome.
Data is the new oil. So next time I open my phone, I can check that one out. Another piece of her quote was, and it went along with that sentence, like, we don't need an insurgent taking any of the anti-Trump votes away from the, I'm having a brain fart. I had it just before I started saying it. A candidate that is, the viable candidate, through a viable candidate. And I just immediately thought, we don't have a viable candidate. We don't. One, he's not the actual nominee. Two, he's not a good nominee. If we're stuck with Joe Biden, we're stuck with Joe Biden. We get another lesser of two evils kind of deal. And he's got, like, early onset dementia. It's immoral to elect this man to the presidency. We don't have a viable candidate. You're not stealing votes from. If anyone votes for Joe Biden, you are taking away the chance of us actually winning a third party in the White House. The same argument can be made. And if you disagree with half of what Joe Biden's record, then you already agree with me. We should just vote for, like, someone at the Green Party. We should just do, like, we can all collectively vote Green no matter who. It's really not that hard to make that argument. It makes more sense anyways. We need a third party so we can stop making these lesser of two evil decisions.
The Green Party has a lot of policies that I love so much, but there are a couple that I'm like, no. So much no. But then I have to leverage them with the other two that we have, and there's so much yes. However, like the conservatives, they have magical thinking. Well, the Green Party has magical thinking too. Their magical thinking is that GMOs are bad and Roundup causes cancer, and there's a lot of things that they're not understanding what that. They're not understanding what the science is saying. They're understanding what the lawsuits have said. And the lawsuits are about making money. They're not about science. So that's frustrating. And then I feel like I'm at a crossroads. Definitely. I guess if I could snap my fingers and have a party that I think would benefit this country, it would be a Labor Party. We need a Labor Party.
We do. And the Green is the closest thing we have. I think just a populist party would be nice too, but a Labor Party would be great.
A Labor Party would be it. And we have a question.
Yes, please.
By Randolph Richardson's. Yes. Question for host. What was the problem between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren? I heard he made some sort of sexist comment towards her, but I don't know the details. That's exactly it, Randolph. You heard that he said some sexist comment towards her. There is zero evidence. Apparently, one day, Elizabeth Warren woke up and said, today is the day that 8 years ago today, I talked to Bernie Sanders alone with no witnesses, and he told me that in this country, women could never win the presidency. And that was sexist. And so I'm going to tell the whole world. And then she did. And then asked, was anybody there to hear that? No. Well, why did you wait 8 years? I think everything should be investigated when you're making claims that big on a political stage where you want to be a leader. I think it should be looked into. Absolutely. Even though it goes against Bernie. But once you look into it and you realize, as they did, Bernie's been fighting for women and women of color his entire adult life, being chained to, civil rights protests and no, that's not the person. You can't, like, that goes against his character. And I'm not saying he's a saint and he hasn't sold out or done politician-y things. He has, but he also has been on the right side of civil rights and human rights on every policy. So I don't believe it. And so
that's not in his character like it is Joe Biden.
In his character, right? And I think that her team told her, people like Bernie's policies better. You're going to have to do something. She hired people who worked for Hillary Clinton's campaign before. And then I guess they told her you have to, hit him low and say he's sexist, which that's like calling Bernie anti-Semitic. He's Jewish, dumbasses. Right. So.
Yeah. Oh, also she endorsed Joe Biden. Hillary Clinton did. She endorsed him and talked about women's rights and didn't mention Tara Reid. Sorry, just need to sprinkle that one in there. There was another thing. Happy birthday to Theo. Theo Radically. He's always in our chat every week. We appreciate you being here and happy birthday, dude. Thanks for being here. A couple more things real quick before we close out, because it is about time to go. I had a news of the week thingy here for you guys. So let me copy it. And we're going to put it in the description down below. Just ask not to do that for us. Right here is Cody of Some More News. I don't watch his show a whole hell of a lot. It has like a little bit of goofy, dry humor. But he covered all the news that were missing because of the coronavirus, which was pretty cool. There's space crimes, there's some election news, there's a whole bunch of cool news that we're missing out on right now. And he just put it all out there in a really fun, interesting way. And it was the best thing I think I watched all week. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that with everyone and kind of give that video a shout out. So check that video out after this or tomorrow morning. It's about 30 minutes long. Most of his shows are, but it really is worth watching. It's only like 3-4 days old, I think. So it's still pretty relevant too. Last thing I want to throw out there before we're gone for the night is genstrike.org. This is a movement, worldwide movement. You can go there basically to just learn more about what you can do to kind of fight for labor rights. There's a lot of movements connected to Gen Strike all over the country, all over the world. And a lot of stuff was actually going down today on May 1st for May Day. So we may have missed out on a lot, but there's a lot of community and organization that goes on in that group. So if you want to learn anything about it, check out the link. If you don't like anything that they're doing, push the X at the top right of your screen, get out of it. It's not a big deal. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, check it out. It's a good resource, and I wanted to make sure I shared it after our show tonight.
Yeah, I wanted to add something.
Yeah, please.
Definitely. I wanted to say I appreciate you guys showing up week after week, and it's been like a roller coaster. When we started, I thought I felt completely one way, and so much has changed since then, and I don't feel like I have a political home right now. And I'm sure Mac feels a lot like that too, and I'm sure many Americans feel like that. I love that we can come here each week and be honest about that, talk about those things, and you guys are in the chat, it's just awesome to be part of a community. I love when you challenge us. I love when I look down and I'm like, exactly, I was feeling that too. Or it's just, we're in a weird spot in our country, in our history. And I want to make sure that we're on the right side of history. So, keep us honest. If you hear or see something that, kind of counter or contradict something that you hear here, let us know and let's look into it and see if maybe we had it wrong, because apparently I just get stuff big wrong all the time, like solar panels.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. Yeah, that's something I want to get back into.
No, I wanted to say thank you for allowing us to kind of like morph and change into who knows.
And to share.
And share on this political journey of who knows where we'll gonna complete a party that doesn't even exist right now in the future, or who knows. But hopefully we stay involved. And
I will vote for a Trump in December, right?
In December.
We'll vote for him in December. So much is gonna change. Watch us vote in December now, because I said that. Watch, it's actually gonna happen.
It'll be my Christmas present to you.
To you. Everyone's gonna vote on Christmas. It's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be white.
It's the most beautiful Christmas.
It's gonna be so white. All right. All right. With that, I think we're gonna go. Thank you, everyone, so much. Like Christy said, for joining us every week, every Friday night. We really, really appreciate it. We love you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And why don't you stay
humanist for
God's sake. Good night.